Oh yes, I was going to see. I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember whether try that less suppression or more suppression. I can't tell. Not sure. You'll have to tell me when you all start coming in. Hello, Rakgloss. How do I sound? Oh, it's a Mendici and Lowens. Hello, welcome in. And Peaches as well. We're getting everybody in. And Honeybee. Oh, good. Oh, people are coming in nice and early, nice and quickly. How do I sound to everybody? You hear ghosts in the background. That doesn't sound very good. It's Des. Hello. Oh, it's Des. Des will appreciate one of the memes I have right now. How about now? How does my voice sound now? Does it sound much worse? Okay. Okay. All right then. All right then. All right then. All right then. So. Okay. All right. All right. All right. All right. All right. So, if we keep it, if we, how? So this is good. This is good. It's out the. This is okay. Would it? How is that better? Is this just much better here? I've changed it now to all the way off. Is that just is noise suppression just a thing we shouldn't even try to do? Okay. All right. We'll put it up to here for now, and we'll deal with it like that. Okay. All right. Yes, I rather liked my memes today. I was rather pleased with myself. Admittedly, again, discussing things with Dessa does give me many memeable opinions. The incredible dichotomy that can be created just by comparing how many times Theoden mentions Theodred, who is his son who died, who literally he discovered had died about less than a week ago, and he does not and it's not like he doesn't have places to mention him. There are literally moments where Theodred is brought up, like Aemir brings up Theodred, and Theoden specifically, almost purposefully, it sounds like, ignores it, in a little bit, and it draws such an intense dichotomy between the number of times Theoden mentions Theodred at all, which is never, by the way. He mentions him once at the very beginning when we hear about him, where he literally just says he's dead, and that's literally all he says. He doesn't even he doesn't say it in a particularly. I made him say it particularly sadly, but now I'm wondering if I shouldn't have, because he never mentions him again. Purposefully, he doesn't mention him again. It's not like he doesn't have time or space or people or moments that he could mention Theodred at all. He just doesn't. He just doesn't, ever. And it is so conspicuous in comparison to Denethor, who mentions who honestly and clearly and without kind of a sense of kind of trying to make himself seem better in this situation. Like Gandalf says that he uses his grief as a cloak. He doesn't really. Like Denethor could have said all the things he said without Boromir's death as a cloak. Like he's really just honestly telling people that he's he's in deep grief and mourning over the loss of his son, which he does blame himself for. Theoden never mentions it. Theoden doesn't even say that he believes that Theodred's death is his fault. Really the only thing we have to go on in terms of Theoden's mental well-being is the fact that he just really wants to die, and that seems more like a kind of sort of reclamation of some kind of honor than his own sense of actual guilt over the fact. But anyway, again, because this is not a situation that has just suddenly arrived in his lap after he's awoken from a coma. He literally is aware and has been aware and has been doing all of the things he's been doing. I'm still really angry about it. I know I'm still real angry. I'm still real pressed about it. He's garnered all the sympathy that he does not deserve from the fandom. Like all of the sobbing, the tender description, it's so tragic. The tragedy of Theoden. Like, I don't know. Is he that tragic? Isn't he just a little bit feeble, really? Feeble-willed? He just kind of didn't want to deal with any of it? Anyway. Yes, I mean, this is the issue. Like, the films make Theoden seem so, relatable. And they give him this pass for everything that he's done because he's possessed or whatever. But no, he just isn't. He just kind of wanted to believe what Grima told him, and didn't want to believe what Theodred told him, or Éomer, or Éowyn, or any of them. Anyway. It's gonna be a little bit rough, because in a bit Theoden's gonna meet Merry and Pippin, and that's funny. That's a funny bit, but you're kind of looking at him like you're kind of thinking about Theoden talking to these hobbits, and in this really jovial, fun way, and all I can think about is, okay, but like, this is funny, but number one, like, even people, like, a lot of people died, like, just a bit ago, like, not even that long ago, like a day ago, a very large number of people died, one of whom, Hama, you do grieve for in media res, and is the only one you mentioned, but you're still kind of, anyway, we can chalk it up to. Yes, Honeybee is right. Him crying, Theoden crying at Theodred's grave in the film is one of the scenes which makes me most emotional, because it's so rough. It's so rough to watch. It's really hard. But that never happens. I just like in the most, like, not even that Theodred never gets brought. He's buried at like this is the other thing. Like, Theoden isn't about. We'll get there. Actually, we won't do this. We'll get there. We'll get there. We'll wait a little bit longer. We'll deal with it when we get there. We'll cross that ford when we come to it. Now, today I have I've had a headache all day, but it's just a headache. I think it could turn into a migraine, but it's just a headache, and I'm gonna be a bit off for this reading, which is a shame but I just really wanted to get this one done because I do like this bit and I've been wanting to read it all week because it is funny. It's funny, but that joke was just for Dessa, and they got it, and that's making me very happy. The rest of you will get this joke later. We will get. The rest of you will get the joke later. Anyway, I will wait about 5 minutes more. Kaz said he was going to be in today, but admittedly, I feel like he's probably still asleep. Also, I imagine he's just so so what was what he's so busy with professionally orchestrating his own podcast. Yeah, he's probably gonna be late. Don't know. We might be getting Cal, but yeah, I'll wait for like another 5 minutes or so. I am excited to get Hobbits again. I am excited to get back to Hobbits. And Gimli and Legolas are still a big high for this whole bit, so it's all good. And I really do not think we're going to get to Saruman this stream because they sit and talk to those hobbits for so long. We're just gonna be sitting and talking to hobbits for this whole stream, which does sound nice. I grant you. They're going to be saying some shit. They're going to be saying some stuff. Oh yes, no, of course. What we're actually going to be doing is listening to Merry and Pippin in the book tell Gandalf and Theoden and everyone else of the battle at Isengard between the Ents, which is a narrative technique, shall we say, that Tolkien likes to resort to every now and then, but not he resorts to it a little more than he should, I think. Yes, I know Rakgloss. Yes, he is there, but I will be using your meme to next stream. Because it will be more pertinent. He is there, it's true. I don't know if he's actually on top of the tower or not, but he's hiding in there with Grima. Oh gosh. I've got to do Treebeard's voice today. I have to do Treebeard and Gandalf's voice at the same time today. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of okay with it. It's a little bit... I like it in terms of it makes it really makes it feel like it's a thing that they're doing. It's a thing that's happening. It makes it a jovial meeting, I suppose. It's quite nice. We are dropping 64.2% of frames? Oh dear, that is a lot. We shouldn't be. Our KVS is fine. Well, never mind. Oh yes, that's the other thing. Do people want... So I don't have another walking video for this. Would you prefer to have the Helm's Deep walking video, or would you like to go back to the kind of more pertinent but still not really general Rohan walking video? a good time to see how quickly we are dropping, how quickly we're becoming, how quickly the lag's catching up with us. I'm not buffering, am I? I shouldn't be buffering. Anyway, okay. Right, we've hung around. I didn't have much for a preamble this time. We'll just get to reading. Somebody tell me when you hear me say this. Okay, so we are a bit behind already. But never mind, we'll get to it then. We'll get to it. Yeah, okay, yeah. We're only a little bit behind each other. That's not too bad. That's not too bad. Okie dokie. Alright then. Toss a coin for the walking video, I'd say. Well, I don't have a coin near me. We'll go for Helm's Deep, just simply because that's a new one. We might as well just keep going with the new one instead of going back to an old one. We'll go on with a new one, especially because at least at the very end we do get the edge of the forest that's come up to thing. Because I was trying to figure out if I could do it, because Isengard is a thing and you can go there. I'll do it for the next video, so that we can walk around Isengard. Anyway, we will do this one. Yeah, okay. We're all still very sad about Harmer. Yeah, it's just very, it really is very sad. It really is very sad about Harmer. Theoden's gonna make you sad about Harmer. Anyway, okay. So we left off with Legolas and Gimli being delightful about the caves, Aglarond, but at last the company passed through the trees and found that they had come to the bottom of the coombe where the road from Helm's Deep branched, going one way east to Edoras and the other way north to the fords of Isen. As they rode from under the eaves of the wood, Legolas halted and looked back with regret. Then he gave a sudden cry. "Well, there are eyes," he said. "Eyes looking out from the shadows of the boughs. I never saw such eyes before." The others, surprised by his cry, halted and turned, but Legolas started to ride back. "No, no," cried Gimli. "Do as you please in your madness, but let me first get down from this horse. I wish to see no eyes." "Stay, Legolas Greenleaf," said Gandalf. "Do not go back into the wood. Not yet. Now is not your time." Even as he spoke, there came forward out of the trees 3 strange shapes. As tall as trolls they were, 12 feet or more in height. Their strong bodies, stout as young trees, seemed to be clad with raiment or with hide of close-fitting grey and brown. Their limbs were long, and their hands had many fingers. Their hair was stiff, and their beards grey-green as moss. They gazed out with solemn eyes, but they were not looking at the riders. Their eyes were bent northwards. Suddenly they lifted their long hands to their mouths and sent forth ringing calls, clear as notes of a horn, but more musical and various. The calls were answered, and, turning again, the riders saw other creatures of the same kind approaching, striding through the grass. They came swiftly from the north, walking like wading herons in their gait. Oh, that's a nice image. Wading herons in their gait is a nice image. That gives a good sense of it. Wading like herons in their gait, but not in their speed, for their legs in their long paces beat quicker than the herons' wings. The riders cried aloud in wonder, and some set their hands upon their sword hilts.
You need no weapons, said Gandalf. These are but herdsmen. They are not enemies. Indeed, they are not concerned with us at all.
So it seemed to be, for as he spoke, the tall creatures, without a glance at the riders, strode into the wood and vanished.
Herdsmen, said Theoden. Where are their flocks? What are they, Gandalf? For it is plain that to you, at any rate, they are not strange. Oh, they are the shepherds of the trees, answered Gandalf. It is so long since you listened. Is it so long that since you listened to the tales by the fireside? There are children in your land who, out of the twisted threads of story, could pick the answer to your question. You have seen Ents, O king, Ents out of Fangorn Forest, which in your tongue you call the Entwood. Did you think that name was given only in idle fancy? Nay, Theoden, it is otherwise. To them you are but the passing tale. All the years, from all the young to Theoden the old, are of little count to them, and all the deeds of your house but a small matter.
The king was silent.
Ents, he said at length. Out of the shadows of legend I begin a little to understand the marvel of the trees, I think. I have lived to see strange days. Long we have tended our beasts and our fields, built our houses, wrought our tools, or ridden away to help in the wars of Minas Tirith, and that we call the life of men, the way of the world. We cared little for what lay beyond the borders of our land. Songs we have that tell of these things, but we are forgetting them, teaching them only to children, as a careless custom. And now the songs have come down upon us out of strange places, and more visible under the sun. Oh, you should be glad, Theoden King, said Gandalf, for not only the little life of men is now endangered, but the life also of those things which you have deemed the matter of legend. You are not without allies, even if you know them not. Yet also I should be sad, said Theoden, for however the fortune of war shall go, may it not so end much that was fair and wonderful shall pass for ever out of Middle-earth? It may, said Gandalf. The evil of Sauron cannot be wholly cured, nor made as it had not been. But to such days we are doomed. Let us now go on with the journey we have begun.
Thanks, Gandalf. That's great. Well, we're doomed. Don't worry about it. We're doomed to those days. We better get going. Never mind. The company turned then away from the coombe and from the wood, and took the road towards the fords. Legolas followed reluctantly. The sun had set. Already it had sank behind the rim of the world. But as they rode out from the shadow of the hills and looked west to the gap of Rohan, the sky was still red, and a burning light was under the floating clouds. Dark against it there wheeled and flew many black-winged birds. Some passed overhead with mournful cries, returning to their homes among the rocks.
The carrion crow have been busy about the battlefield, said Éomer.
They rode now in an easy pace, and dark came down upon the plains about them. The slow moon mounted, now waxing towards the full, and in its cold silver light the swelling grasslands rose and fell like the wide grey sea. They had ridden for some 4 hours from the branching of the roads when they drew near to the fords. Long slopes ran swiftly down to where the river spread in stony shoals between high grassy terraces. Borne upon the wind, they heard the howling of wolves. Their hearts were heavy, remembering the many men that had fallen in the battle in this place. The road dipped between rising turf banks, carving its way through the terraces in the river's edge, and up again upon the further side. There were 3 lines of flat stepping stones across the stream, and between them the fords for horses that went from either brink to a bare eyot in the midst. The riders looked down upon the crossings, and it seemed strange to them, for the fords had ever been a place full of the rush and clatter of water upon stones. But now they were silent. The beds of the stream were almost dry, a bare waste of shingles and grey sand.
This has become a dreary place, said Éomer. What sickness has befallen the river? Many fair things Saruman has destroyed. Has he devoured the springs of Isen too? So it would seem, said Gandalf. Alas, said Theoden, must we pass this way, where the carrion beasts devour so many good riders of the mark? This is our way, said Gandalf. Grievous is the fall of your men, but you shall see that at least the wolves of the mountains do not devour them. It is with their friends the orcs that they hold their feast. Such indeed is the friendship of their kind. Come." No. They rode down to the river, and as they came, the wolves ceased their howling and slunk away. Fear fell on them, seeing Gandalf in the moon, and Shadowfax, his horse shining like silver. Tolkien just really loves this. He really likes this image of Gandalf on his horse. He just thinks it's so cool. He thinks that Gandalf being all white on his silver horse is just the coolest thing, and he keeps talking about it. Also, did you notice how this is the bit, like, Theodred's buried here. Theodred's buried here. He's buried on one of these mounds of these Ayats. He is not yet like, nobody's mentioning him. There were many men fell here. Okay, that's true. But Theoden, also your son as well. Your son also died here and is buried here. Anyway, they rode down to the river, and as they came, the riders passed over to the islet, and glittering eyes watched them wanly from the shadows of the banks. "Look," said Gandalf, "friends have laboured here." And they saw that in the midst of the Ayat a mound was piled, ringed with stones, and set about with many spears. "Here lie all the men of the mark that fell near this place," said Gandalf. "And here let them rest," said Éomer, "and when their spears have routed and rusted, long still may their mounds stand and guard the fords of Isen."
"Is this also your work, Gandalf, my friend?" said Theoden. "You accomplished much in an evening and a night."
"With the help of Shadowfax and others," said Gandalf, "I rode fast and far. But here beside the mound I will say this for your comfort. Many fell in the battles of the fords, but fewer than rumour made them. More were scattered than were slain. I gathered together all that I could. Some men I sent with Grimbold of Westfold to join Erkenbrand. Some I sent to make this burial. They have now followed your marshal, Elfhelm. I sent him with many riders to Edoras. Saruman, I knew, had dispatched his full strength against you, and his servants had turned aside from all other errands and gone to Helm's Deep. The land seemed empty of enemies, yet I feared the wolf riders and plunderers might ride none the less to Meduseld while it was undefended. But now I think you need not fear that. You will find your house to welcome your return."
"And glad shall I be to see it again," said Theoden. "Though brief now, I doubt not shall be my abiding there."
With that, the company said farewell to the island and the mound, and passed over the river and climbed the further bank. Then they rode on, glad to have left the mournful fords. As they went, the howling of the wolves broke out anew again. So, yep, they've just continued on with no again. This is where Theodred died, and it's not like they've had a funeral. They have not had a funeral yet for Theodred. Like, it's not happened yet. And so it's just very noticeable that he's not mentioned. It's very noticeable that he's not mentioned. And there's many possible literary reasons for this, but they all seem very weak in comparison to the stark absence of a mention of Theodred. Then they rode on, glad to have left the mournful fords. As they went, the howling of the wolves broke out anew. There was an ancient highway that ran down from Isengard to the crossings. For some way it took its course beside the river, bending with it east and then north, but at this last it turned away and went straight towards the gates of Isengard. And these were under the mountainside in the west of the valley, 16 miles or more from its mouth. This road they followed, but they did not ride upon it, for the ground beside it was firm and level, covered for many miles about with short, springing turf. They rode now more swiftly, and by midnight the fords were nearly 5 leagues behind. Then they halted, ending their night's journey, for the king was weary. They were come to the feet of the misty mountains, and the long arms of Nan Kuranir stretched down to meet them. Dark lay the vale before them. The moon had passed into the west, and its light was hidden by the hills. But out of the deep shadow of the dale rose a vast spire of smoke and vapour. As it mounted, it caught the rays of the sinking moon, and spread in shimmering billows, black and silver, over the starry sky.
"What do you think of that, Gandalf?" said Aragorn. "One would say that all the Wizard's Vale was burning."
"There is ever a fume above that valley these days," said Éomer, "but I have never seen aught like this before. These are streams rather than smokes. Saruman is brewing some devilry to greet us. Maybe he's boiling all the waters of the Isen, and that is why the river is run dry."
"Maybe he is," said Gandalf. "Tomorrow you shall learn what he is doing. Now let us rest for a while, if we can."
They camped beside the river of the Isen. It was still silent and empty. Some of them slept a little, but late in the night the watchman cried out and all awoke. The moon was gone. Stars were shining above, but over the ground there crept a darkness blacker than night. On both sides of the river it rolled towards them, going northward.
"Stay where you are," said Gandalf. "Draw no weapons. Wait, and it will pass you by."
A mist gathered about them. Above them a few stars still glimmered faintly, but on either side there arose walls of impenetrable gloom. They were in a narrow lane between moving towers of shadow. Voices they heard, whisperings and groanings, and an endless rustling sigh. The earth shook under them. Long it seemed to them that they sat and were afraid, but at last the darkness and rumour passed, and vanished between the mountain's arms. I love that. That's like terrifying. You just can't see anything, but there's just a ton of trees just all moving, muttering and grumbling to themselves. Ugh! Away upon the Hornburg, in the middle night, men heard a great noise, as a wind in the valley, and the ground trembled, and all were afraid, and no one ventured to go forth. But in the morning they went out and were amazed, for the slain orcs were gone, and the trees also. Far down into the valley of the deep the grass was crushed and trampled brown, as if giant herdsmen had pastured great droves of cattle there. But a mile below the dike a huge pit had been delved in the earth, and over it stones were piled into a hill. Men believed that the orcs whom they had slain were buried there, but whether those who had fled into the wood were with them none could say, for no man ever set foot upon that hill. The Death Down it was afterwards called, and no grass would grow there. But the strange trees were never seen in Deepingcombe again. They had returned at night, and had gone far away into the dark dales of Fangorn. Thus they were revenged upon the orcs. The king and his company slept no more that night, but they saw and heard no other strange thing, save one. The voice of the river beside them suddenly awoke. There was a rush of water hurrying down among the stones, and when it had passed, the Isen flowed and bubbled in its bed again, as it had ever done. At dawn they made ready to go on. The light came grey and pale, and they did not see the rising sun. The air above was heavy with fog, and a reek lay on the land about them. They went slowly, riding now upon the highway. It was broad and hard, and well tended. Dimly through the mists they could descry the long arm of the mountains rising on their left. They had passed into Nan Kuranir, the Wizard's Vale. That was a sheltered valley, open only to the south. Once it had been fair and green, and through it the Isen flowed, already deep and strong before it found the plains. For it was fed by many streams, and lesser streams among the rain-washed hills, and all about it had lain a pleasant, fertile land. It was not so now. Beneath the walls of Isengard there still were acres tilled by the slaves of Saruman, but most of the valley had become a wilderness of weeds and thorns. Brambles trailed upon the ground, or clambered over bush and bank, made shaggy caves where small beasts housed. Bleh. No trees grew there, but among the rank grasses could still be seen the burned and axe-hewn stumps of ancient groves. It was a sad country, silent now, but for the stony noise of quick waters. Smokes and streams drifted in sullen clouds and lurked in the hollows. The riders did not speak. Many doubted in their hearts, wondering to what dismal end their journey led. I really do like all the riders of Rohan who don't trust Gandalf and never will. Like they're all like, okay, maybe he managed it this time, but now he's definitely leading us to our death. They have the right idea. After they had ridden for some miles, the highway became a wide street, paved with great flat stones, squared and laid with skill. No blade of grass was seen in any point. Deep gutters, filled with trickling water, ran down on either side. Suddenly a tall pillar loomed up before them. It was black, and set upon it was a great stone, carved and painted in the likeness of a long white hand. Its finger pointed north. Not far now they knew the gates of Isengard must stand, and their hearts were heavy, but their eyes could not pierce the mists ahead. Beneath the mountain's arm, but within the wizard's veil, Yes, sorry, Rackle says small beasts. Again, Tolkien is moralizing very specific species of plants and animals. Like, brambles are fine. I mean, they're terrifying, all-encompassing creatures that do tend to wipe out everything around it, but they're good for other beasts and stuff, and it's fine if for little beasts to make, like, homes in brambles and stuff. It's not bad. It's not morally wrong. Beneath the mountain's arm, within the wizard's veil, through years uncounted, had stood the ancient place that men called Isengard. Partly it was shaped in the making of the mountains, but mighty works the men of Westernesse had wrought there of old, and Saruman had dwelt there long, and had not been idle. This was its fashion, while Saruman was at his height, accounted by many the chief of wizards. A great ring wall of stone, like towering cliffs, stood out from the shelter of the mountainside, from which it ran and then returned again. Oh god, we've got to do descriptions, don't we? One entrance only was there, made in it, a great arch delved into the southern wall. Here, through the black rock, a long tunnel had been hewn, closed at either end with mighty doors of iron. They were so wrought and poised upon their huge hinges, posts of steel driven into the living stone, that when unbarred they could be moved with a light thrust of the arms. Oh, nice. Noiselessly. One who passed in and came at length out of the echoing tunnel beheld a plain, a great circle, somewhat hollowed like a vast shallow bowl. A mile it measured from rim to rim. God, that's very large. That's like as large as Minas Tirith. No, Minas Tirith is like a mile and a bit, but it's it's a big place. But anyway, once it had been green and filled with avenues and groves of fruitful trees, watered by streams that flowed from the mountains to a lake, but no green thing grew there in the latter days of Saruman. The roads were paved with stone flags, dark and hard, and beside their borders, instead of trees, there marched long lines of pillars, some of marble, some of copper, and some of iron, joined by heavy chains. Many houses there were, chambers, halls, and passages, tunneled back into the walls upon their inner side, so that all this open circle was overlooked by countless windows and dark doors. Thousands could dwell there, workers, servants, slaves, and warriors, with great store of arms. Wolves were fed and stabled in deep dens beneath. The plain, too, was bored and delved. Shafts were driven deep into the ground. Their upper ends were covered by low mounds and domes of stone. So that in the moonlight the ring of Isengard looked like a graveyard of unquiet dead, for the ground trembled. The shafts ran down by many slopes and spiral stairs to caverns far under. There Saruman had treasures, storehouses, armories, smithies, and great furnaces. Iron wheels revolved there endlessly, and hammers thudded. At night plumes of vapour steamed from the vents, lit from beneath with red light, or blue, or venomous green. Good lord! Really? How getting venomous green light. Blue and red light, actually, also. Saruman's just having a fucking rave down there. Saruman's just having a goddamn rave down there. Oh, we've got... how do I can't remember how I... Cannot remember how one blocks. Oh, there we go. There we are. Band hour robot. Reckless asks what are the pillars for? I actually don't know. I think it's literally just because they're cool and spiky. Saruman really is very... I mean, it sounds like he's just having a rave. So, who knows what his architectural designs, what the choices mean or have purpose for. Oh my goodness, okay, so... At night, plumes of vapour steamed from the vents, lit from beneath with red light or blue or venomous green. Again, what a wild image. It is a really wild image. Just the idea of, like... So you have mist. Like, it's literally like some kind of special effect that you get at a concert. Like, it's wild. Oh dear. It really does. Sorry, Lawan says this calls for a Caramel Dancing edit. It does. It's true. Like, Saruman straight up having a rave down there. But okay. To the center, all the roads ran between their chains. There stood a tower of marvelous shape. It was fashioned by the builders of old, who smoothed the ring of Isengard, and yet it seemed a thing not made by the craft of men, but riven from the bones of the earth in the ancient torment of the hills. A peak and isle of rock it was, black and gleaming hard. 4 mighty piers of many-sided stone were welded into one, but near the summit they opened into gaping horns, their pinnacles sharp as the points of spears, keen-edged as knives. Between them was a narrow space, and there upon a floor of polished stone, written with strange signs, a man might stand 500 feet above the plain. This was Orthanc, the citadel of Saruman, the name of which had, by design or choice, a twofold meaning, for in the Elvish speech, Orthanc signifies Mount Fang, and in the language of the Mark of old, the cunning mind. Oh, nice. The Numenorians really did decide that they were going to go gothic for a bit, didn't they? They were just like, today we will cease our beautiful, our white aesthetic, our marble stoned, intricately inlaid, very pleasant architecture, and we're just gonna go gothic for this one. One architect just went hog wild on Orthanc. He was given the rights, he was given the land, and they said, do what you want, and he was like, oh, you shouldn't have said that. And then they came and it was like, this is just a place where a vampire lives. Why did you do this? And he was like, well, you told me I'd do what I want, and I'm sorry. This is my aesthetic. This is my vision. Ah. A strong place and wonderful was Isengard. Are you sure? And long it had been beautiful. Are you sure? You haven't described it as beautiful, but anyway. And there great lords had dwelt, the wardens of Gondor upon the west, and wise men that watched the stars. But Saruman had slowly shaped it to his shifting purposes, and made it better, as he thought, being deceived, for all those arts and subtle devices for which he forsook his former wisdom, and which fondly he imagined were his own, but came from Mordor, so that what he made was naught only if a little copy of child's model or a slave's flattery of that vast fortress, armory, prison, furnace of great power, Barad-dûr, the dark tower, which suffered no rival, and laughed at flattery, biding its time, secure in its pride and its immeasurable strength.
This was the stronghold of Saruman, as fame reported it. For within living memory, the men of Rohan had not passed its gates, save perhaps a few, such as Wormtongue, who came in secret and told no man what they saw.
Oh, that's very cool. Des says, also it's because Tolkien was envisioning this as a volcanic formation, so the Numenorians were working with black rock that was there. That's very cool. I do feel like it's much spikier. It's also the spikiness as well. Like like he's like I keep looking at the way they designed Orthanc in the film, and I always think that seems a little bit too evil for what was originally a Numenorian tower, but no. It's literally spiked like with knives. It just says spiked with knives, which I just feel like is not the bread and butter of Numenorian architecture, but I mean maybe it was. But no, that's cool. So does that mean that Orthanc is under a volcano? Does that mean that, sorry, on top of a volcano? Because that's cool too. Maybe they could have used that in. Maybe they could have used that to defeat Saruman once and for all. Just get on down there, get a few dwarves. They know what to do. That would have been a funny end to Saruman. Now Gandalf rode to the great pillar of the hand and passed it, and as he did so the riders saw to their wonder that the hand appeared no longer white. It was stained as with dried blood, and looking closer they perceived that its nails were red. Unheeding, Gandalf rode on into them. Wait, no, I'm sorry. You can't just walk away from that. So it was white before, and then Gandalf rode past it, and then it changed to having bloody nails and blood stains on it. Which of the wizards did that? Which of the drama queens did that? Was it Gandalf or was it Saruman? I guess it must have been Gandalf. He just fucking passed that. Like, he didn't have to do that. He did not have to do that, but he did just like it's the funniest shit I ever heard. He just waltzed on past it and then casually was just like, but look, it's got blood on it now, isn't that dramatic? And it's like, no, Gandalf, this doesn't work for your, like, why is it that way though? Why? Oh, I hate this old man so much. I hate either of these old men. Whichever did that, I hate either of them. I don't think it was Saruman, and I think it was Gandalf, and I can't stand him. Or is it just... Because it's not like it's just a marble hand. It's not like it's the source of his power or anything. It's not like Saruman is connected to the hand. Or whatever. Like, it's not like Saruman is, like, intimately connected to the hand. It's not like if you crushed the hand, then Saruman would have been defeated. So why is it changing with his mood? Like, it must be Gandalf. Like a mood hand. We better check on we better check on Saruman's morals by going up and seeing whatever the white hand is doing next to his gates. Because he just sits there and lets us know about it. Or it's just Gandalf being wild. Being just real wild and dramatic as he is, which I think must be the answer. Anyway. Unheeding. Okay, Rekor says, I think it wasn't intentional on Gandalf's part, it's just a natural reaction because the hand's evil. No! The hand is just a statue. It's just a statue. Surely it can't have... Like, I cannot even begin to think about the idea that this hand is so important that it's an evil rock. Like, this hand is an evil rock? Like, it can't do anything. It's not like it's a particularly precious hand. It doesn't have any powers. It doesn't have any... How is this rock evil? Just because it's been carved in the shape of a white hand, how is it evil? No! God, I do not accept this answer. Evil things have to have a point to being evil. It can't just be an evil hand just because it's outside of... No. Okay. Unheeding. Gandalf rode on into the mist, and reluctantly they followed him. All about them now, as if there had been a sudden flood, wide pools of water lay beside the road, filling the hollows and rills went trickling down among the stones. Ugh. At last Gandalf halted and beckoned to them, and they came, and saw that beyond him the mists had cleared, and a pale sunlight shone. Over there. At last Gandalf halted and beckoned them, and they came, and saw that beyond him the mists had cleared, and a pale sunlight shone. The hour of noon had passed. They were come to the doors of Isengard. But the doors lay hurled and twisted on the ground, and all about stone cracked and splintered into countless jagged shards, was scattered far and wide, all piled in ruinous heaps. The great arch still stood, but it opened now upon a roofless chasm. The tunnel was laid bare, and though the cliff-like walls on either side were great rents, and through the cliff-like walls on either side, great rents and breaches had been torn, their towers were beaten into dust. If the great sea had risen in wrath and fallen on the hills with storm, it could have worked no greater ruin. The ring beyond was filled with steaming water, a bubbling cauldron in which there heaved and floated a wreckage of beams and spars, chests and casks and broken gear. Twisted and leaning pillars reared their splintered stems above the flood, but all the roads were drowned. Far off, it seemed, half veiled in winding cloud, there loomed the island Rock. Still dark and tall, unbroken by the storm, the Tower of Orthanc stood. Pale waters lapped about its feet. The king and all his company sat silent on their horses, marvelling, perceiving that the power of Saruman was overthrown, but how they could not guess, and now they turned their eyes towards the archway and the ruined gates. There they saw close beside them a great rubble heap, and suddenly they were aware of two small figures lying on it at their ease, grey-clad, hardly to be seen among the stones. There were bottles and bowls and platters laid beside them, as if they had just eaten well, and now rested from their labour. One seemed asleep, the other, with crossed legs and arms behind his head, leaned back against the broken rock, and sent from his mouth long wisps and little rings of thin blue smoke. Dessa says, if it bothers Gandalf, it's evil. Ragnar says, it's symbolic, come on! No, I will not come on! I will not come on! This doesn't happen usually. This is not how this works. I can't think of another time where some random piece of architecture just turns bloody because it's just randomly evil. I don't accept it. I don't accept it. Honeybee says, Tolkien, I'm going to symbolically show there's blood on his hands. Us yelling. But that's the thing. We already know there's blood on his hands. This is not a revelation. Nothing is being revealed to us, the reader. Or any of these men, either. We all know that Saruman is a murderer and a traitor. We already know this. This is established. We've just gone through a whole bloody war about it. We don't need more evidence for the fact that Saruman is bad and has turned evil now. We don't need it. It's so wild and unnecessary. I have no idea why it is here. For a moment, Theoden and Éomer and all his men stared at them in wonder. Amid all the wreck of Isengard, this seemed to them the strangest sight. But before the king could speak, the small, smoke-breathing figure became suddenly aware of them, as they sat there silent on the edge of the mist. He sprang to his feet. A young man he looked, or like one, though not much more than half a man in height. His head of brown, curling hair was uncovered, but he was clad in a travel-stained cloak of the same hue and shape as the companions of Gandalf had worn when they rode to Edoras. He bowed very low, putting his hand on his breast. Then, seeming not to observe the wizard and his friends, he turned to Éomer and the king. "Welcome, my lords, to Isengard," he said. "We are the Door Wardens. Meriadoc, son of Saradoc, is my name, and my companion who, alas, is overcome with weariness," here he gave the other a dig with his foot, "is Peregrine of Paladin, of the house of Took. Far in the north is our home, The Lord Saruman is within, but at the moment he is closeted with one Wormtongue, or doubtless he would be here to welcome such honourable guests."
"Doubtless he would," laughed Gandalf. "But, and was it Saruman that ordered you to guard his damaged doors and watch for the arrival of guests when your attention could be spared from plate and bottle?"
"Oh no, good sir, the matter escaped him," answered Merry gravely. "He has been much occupied. Our orders came from Treebeard, who has taken over management of Isengard. He commanded me to welcome the Lord of Rohan with fitting words. I have done my best."
"And what about your companions? What about Legolas and me?" cried Gimli, unable to contain himself any longer. "You rascals! You woolly-footed, you wool-plated truants! A fine hunt you've led us on! 200 leagues through fen and forest, battle and death to rescue you, and here we find you feasting and idling and smoking! Smoking! Where did you come by the weed, you villains? Hammer and tongs, I'm so torn between rage and joy that if I do not burst, it will be a marvel."
Wonderful. "You speak for me, Gimli." "You speak for me, Gimli," laughed Legolas, "though I would sooner learn how they came by the wine." Legolas is right there. He's so ready. "Do you say wine? Is there drink? Can I get super drunk right now? I'm ready for it. Where's the wine? Bring it out." That's so funny. "One thing you have not found in your hunting, and that's brighter wits," said Pippin, opening an eye. "Here you find us sitting on a field of victory amid the plunder of enemies, and you wonder how we came by a few well-earned comforts."
"Well earned," said Gimli. "I cannot believe that."
The riders laughed.
"It cannot be doubted that we witnessed the meeting of dear friends," said Theoden. "So these are the lost ones of your company, Gandalf. The days are fated to be filled with marvels. Already I have seen many since I left my house, and now here before my eyes stand yet another of the folk of legend. Are not these halflings, that some among us call the Hobbit land?"
"Oh, hobbits, if you please, lord," said Pippin.
"Hobbits," said Theoden. "Your tongue is strangely changed, but the name sounds not unfitting so. Hobbits, no report that I have heard does justice to the truth."
Merry bowed, and Pippin got up and bowed low. "You are gracious, lord, or I hope that I may so take your words," he said. "And here is another marvel. I have wandered in many lands since I left my home, and never till now have I found people that knew any story concerning hobbits."
"My people came out of the north long ago," said Theoden. "But I will not deceive you. We know no tales about hobbits. All that is said among us is that far away, over many hills and rivers, live the halfling folk that dwell in holes in sand dunes. But there are no legends of their deeds, for it is said that they do little and avoid the sight of men, being able to vanish in a twinkling eye, and they change their voices to resemble the piping of birds. But it seems that more could be said."
"It could indeed, lord," said Merry.
"For one thing," said Theoden, "I had not heard that they spouted smoke from their mouths."
"Well, that is not surprising," answered Merry. I love this bit because Merry is like, "Oh, my hyperfixation has come in at last." He's so ready. "For it is an art which we have not practiced for many more than a few generations. It was Tobald Hornblower of Longbottom in the South Farthing who first grew the true pipeweed in his gardens about the year 1070 according to our reckoning. How old Toby came by the plant—"
"You do not know your danger, Theoden," interrupted Gandalf. "These hobbits will sit on the edge of ruin and discuss the pleasures of the table, or the small things of their fathers, and grandfathers, and great-grandfathers, and remoter cousins to the 9th degree, if you encourage them with undue patience."
Fuck you, Gandalf.
"Some of the time would be more fitting for the history of smoking. Where is Treebeard, Merry?"
"Way on the north side, I believe. He went to get a drink of clean water. Most of the other Ents are with him, still busy at their work, over there." Merry waved his hands towards the steaming lake, and as they looked they heard a distant rumbling and rattling, as if an avalanche was falling from the mountainside. Far away came a "Home, home," as of horns blowing triumphantly. "And is Orthanc left unguarded?" asked Gandalf. "Well, there is the water," said Merry, "but Quickbeam and some others are watching it. Not all those posts and pillars in the plain are of Saruman's planting. Quickbeam, I think, is by the rock, near the foot of the stair." "Yes, a tall grey ent is there," said Legolas, "but his arms are at his sides, and he stands still as a door-tree."
"It is past noon," said Gandalf, "and we at any rate have not eaten since early morning. Yet I wish to see Treebeard as soon as may be. Did he leave me no message, or has plate and bottle driven it from your mind?"
"He left a message," said Merry, "and I was coming to it, but I have been hindered by many questions. I was to say that if the Lord of the Mark and Gandalf will ride to the northern wall, they will find Treebeard there, and he will welcome them. I may add that they will also find food of the best there. It was discovered and selected by your humble servants."
He bowed. Gandalf laughed. "That is better," he said. "Well, Theoden, will you ride with me to find Treebeard? We must go round about, but it is not far. When you see Treebeard you will learn much, for Treebeard is Fangorn, and the eldest and chief of the Ents. And when you speak with him you will hear the speech of the oldest of all living things."
"I will come with you," said Theoden. "Farewell, my hobbits, and may we meet again in my house. There you shall sit beside me and tell me all that your hearts desire, the deeds of your grandsires, as far as you can reckon them, and we will speak also of Tobold the Old and his herb lore. Farewell."
The hobbits bowed low.
"So that is the King of Rohan," said Pippin in an undertone. "A fine old fellow, very polite." We love them so much. We love it when hobbits are here. We love them so very much. Ah, what good fellows. What legendary little fellows. Raklos asks, "Why are you mad? I like it." And I'm assuming that they are mentioning the hand. I'm just mad. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for the moment. It doesn't have any reason to be there, and therefore I am mad about it. Also, I just feel like it has to be Gandalf who's doing it, and that is it's wild that he would do that. Chapter 9, Flotsam and Jetsam. Also, but again, it's hard to read this, because all I can I'm reading this and it's very funny, and I do love Merry and Pippin very much, but all I can think about is the fact that Theoden he lost his son and has yet to and is just, I mean, I know it's just, you know, people just don't think about things when they have stuff to do. I get it, I know, but it just, the fact that he never mentions it is so conspicuous. He's just so fond of hobbits. He's like, "Oh yes, come home with me, and we'll chat about all of Old Leaf and stuff. It'll be great." Like, yes, all right, okay. Anyway, Flotsam and Jetsam. Gandalf and the king's company rode away, turning eastward to make the circuit of the ruined walls of Isengard. But Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas remained behind, leaving Arod and Hasufel to stray in search of grass. They came and sat beside the hobbits.
Well, well, the hunt is over, and we meet again at last, where none of us ever thought to come," said Aragorn.
"And now that the great ones have gone to discuss high matters," said Legolas, "the hunters can perhaps learn the answers to their own small riddles. We tracked you as far as the forest, but there are still many things that I should like to know the truth of." "Oh, and there is a great deal, too, that we want to know about you," said Merry. "We have learnt a few things from Treebeard, the old Ent, but that is not nearly enough." "All in good time," said Legolas. "We were the hunters, and you should give an account of yourselves to us first."
"Or second," said Gimli. It would do better after a meal. I have a sore head, and it is past midday. You truants might make amends by finding us some of the plunder that you spoke of. Food and drink would pay off some of my score against you."
"Oh, then you shall have it," said Pippin. "Will you have it here, or in more comfort? In what in what's left of Saruman's guardhouse over there under the arch. We had a picnic out here, so as to keep an eye on the road.
Less than an eye, said Gimli, but I will not go into any orc house, nor touch orcs' meat or anything that they have mauled.
Oh, we wouldn't ask you to, said Merry. We have had enough of orcs ourselves to last a lifetime. But there were many other folk in Isengard. Saruman kept enough wisdom to not trust his orcs. He had men to guard his gates, some of the most faithful servants, I suppose. Anyway, they were favoured and got good provisions.
And pipeweed, said Gimli. Asked Gimli.
Oh no, I don't think so, laughed Merry. But that is another story which can wait until after lunch.
Well then, let us go and have lunch then, said the dwarf.
The hobbits led the way, and they passed under the arch and came to a wide door upon the left, at the top of the stair. It opened direct into a large chamber, with other smaller doors at the far end, and a hearth and chimney up one side. The chamber was hewn out of the stone, and it must once have been dark, for its windows looked out only into the tunnel, but light came in now through the broken roof. On the hearth wood was burning. I lit a bit of fire, said Pippin. It cheered us up in the fogs. There were a few faggots about, and most of the wood we could find was wet. But there's a great draught in the chimney. It seems to wind up through the rock. Unfortunately, it had not been blocked. A fire is handy. I will make you some toast. The bread is 3 or 4 days old, I'm afraid. Aragorn and his companions sat themselves down at one end of a long table, and the hobbits disappeared through one of the inner doors. Storeroom in there, and above the floods, luckily, said Pippin, as they came back laden with dishes, bowls, cups, knives, and food of various sorts.
And you need not turn up your nose,
And you need not turn up your nose at the provender, Master Gimli, said Merry. This is not orc stuff, but man food, as Treebeard calls it. Will you have wine or beer? There's a barrel inside there, very passable, and this is first-rate salted pork. Or I can cut you some of the rashers of bacon and broil them, if you like. I'm sorry there is no green stuff. The deliveries have been rather interrupted in the last few days. I cannot offer you anything to follow but butter and honey for your bread. Are you content?
Indeed, yes, said Gimli. The score is much reduced.
The three were soon busy with their meal, and the two hobbits, unabashed, set to a second time. We must keep our guests company, they said. You are full of courtesy this morning, laughed Legolas, but maybe if we had not arrived, you would already have been keeping one another company again. Well, maybe, and why not, said Pippin. We had foul fare with the orcs, and little enough for days before that. It seems a long while since we could eat to heart's content.
It does not seem to have done you any harm, said Aragorn. Indeed, you look in the bloom of health. Aye, indeed, you do indeed, said Gimli, looking up and down over the top of his cup. Why, your hair is twice as thick and curly as when we last parted, and I would swear that you have both grown somewhat, if that is possible for hobbits of your age. This Treebeard, at any rate, has not starved you.
Oh, he has not, said Merry, but ends only drink, and drink is not enough for content. Treebeard's draughts may be nourishing, but one feels the need for something solid, and even Lembas is none the worse for a change. You have drunk of the waters of the Ents, have you? Said Legolas. Ah, then I think it is likely that Gimli's eyes do not deceive him. Strange songs have been sung of the draughts of Fangorn.
Many strange tales have been told about that land, said Aragorn. I have never entered it. Come, tell me more about it and about the Ents.
Ents, said Pippin. Ents are all different for one thing. But their eyes are very odd. He tried a few fumbling words that trailed off into silence. Oh well, he went on, you have seen some at a distance already, and they saw you at any rate, and reported that you were on the way. And you will see many others, I expect, before you leave. You must form your own ideas.
Now, said Gimli. We are beginning the story in the middle. I should like a tale in the right order, starting at this strange day when our fellowship was broken.
Oh, you shall have it if there is time, said Merry. But first, if you have finished eating, you shall fill your pipes and light up, and then, for a little while, we can pretend that we are all back safe at Bree again, or in Rivendell. He produced a small leather bag of tobacco. We have heaps of it, he said. You can all pack as much as you wish when we go. We did some salvage work this morning, Pippin and I.
There are lots of things floating about. It was Pippin who found 2 small barrels, washed up out of some cellar or storehouse, I suppose. When we opened them, we found they were filled with this, as fine a pipeweed as you could wish for, and quite unspoiled. Gimli took some and rubbed it in his palms and sniffed it. It feels good, and it smells good, he said. It is good, said Mary. My dear Gimli, it is Longbottom leaf. There were the hornblower brand marks on the barrels, as plain as plain. How it came here I can't imagine, for Saruman's private use, I fancy. I never knew it went so far abroad, but it comes in handy now. It would, said Gimli, if I had a pipe to go with it. Alas, I lost mine in Moria, or before. Is there no pipe in all your plunder? Oh no, I'm afraid not, said Mary. We have not found any, not even here in the guardrooms. Saruman kept his dainty to himself, it seems, or I don't think I would be any use knocking on the doors, and I don't think it would be any use knocking on the doors of Orthanc to beg a pipe of him. We shall have to share pipes, as good friends must in a pinch. Honeybee asks, oldest of living things have, meaning Treebeard, and then she says, I guess I never realised how ancient Treebeard really is. Yes, the Treebeard is supposed to essentially have been wandering around tending to trees before the elves even batted an eyelid. He's an old fellow. So, because the point is that Treebeard, he wandered around Enos Syrian before, and knew that whole forest area quite well. Half a moment, said Pippin. Putting his hand inside the breast of his jacket, he pulled out a little soft wallet on a string. I keep a treasure or two near my skin, as precious as rings to me. Here's one, my old wooden pipe, and here's another, an unused one. I have carried it a long way, though I don't know why. I never really expected to find any pipeweed on the journey when my own ran out, but now it comes in useful after all. He held up a small pipe with a wide, flattened bowl, and handed it to Gimli. Does that settle the score between us? He said. Settle it? Cried Gimli. Most noble hobbit, it leaves me deep in your debt. Well, I am going back into the open air to see what the wind and sky are doing, said Legolas. We will come with you, said Aragorn. They went out and seated themselves upon the piled stones before the gateway. They could see far down into the valley now. The mists were lifting and floating away upon the breeze. Now let us take our ease here for a little, said Aragorn. We will sit on the edge of ruin and talk, as Gandalf says, while he is busy elsewhere. I feel a weariness such as I have seldom felt before. He wrapped his grey cloak about him, hiding his mail shirt, and stretched out his long legs. Then he lay back and set from his lips a thin stream of smoke. Look, said Pippin, Strider the Ranger has come back. He has never been away, said Aragorn. I am Strider and Dunedain too, and I belong both to Gondor and the North. Oh, do you? Oh, do you? Aragorn, is that so? Is that true? That is funny though. It's funny. It is funny. I do quite like the image. I'm just like it's so galling. Like I'm so close to liking Aragorn. He could be so fun. He could be so fun. I'm like this close all times to liking Aragorn because some of the things he does are really funny. Like he's like a little he's a tired little fellow and he's just wrapped himself in his cloak and he's lying back and he's snuggled wrapped in his cloak and he's puffing smoke out and he's got his big long gangly legs and he's a little wilted twig of a man just lying there with like a grasshopper with these enormous long thin legs. Like it's a tender image that I like a lot, and I just wish he wasn't such a bastard. Raklos asks why doesn't Legolas smoke? Well, I just don't. I think at some point or other we're told that elves don't smoke, or they don't smoke that much. I can't remember. Are we ever told this? I don't think. I think if we're ever told it, we're told it in a kind of they don't smoke as much as other races.
but I don't think we're ever actually told that elves don't smoke entirely, so I don't know. I guess Legolas is just, a narc? Yeah, that makes sense to me. They smoked in silence for a while, and the sun shone on them, slanting into the valley from among white clouds high in the west. Legolas lay still, looking up at the sun and sky with steady eyes, and singing softly to himself. At last he sat up. "Come now," he said, "time wears on, and the mists are blowing away, or would if you strange folk did not wreathe yourselves in smoke. What of the tale?" So, okay, right. So it's strange to him. I guess maybe it's because Mirkwood is kind of isolated away, and even if they're doing business with dwarves, they don't, like, do specifically smoking business. That makes no sense, actually. If they're actually doing business with dwarves, it makes absolutely no sense at all that they wouldn't have come into contact with smoking, and that some of them wouldn't have taken it up. Surely. Surely they must have. It seems wild that they wouldn't, but never mind. Apparently that is so. Apparently that is so. What of the tale? Well, my tale begins with waking up in the dark and finding myself all strung up in an orc camp, said Pippin. Let me see, what is today? The 5th of March in the Shire reckoning, said Aragorn. Pippin made some calculations on his fingers. Only 9 days ago, he said. It seems a year since we were caught. There's a little asterisk here that says every month of the Shire calendar has 30 days, which is great. It seems a year since we were caught. Well, though half of it was like a bad dream, I reckon that 3 very horrible days followed. Mary will correct me if I forget anything important. I'm not going into details of the whips and the filth and the stench and all that. It does not bear remembering. With that, he plunged into account of Boromir's last fight and the orc march from Emin Muil to the forest. The others nodded as the various points were fitted in with their guesses. Here are some treasures that you let fall, said Aragorn, and you will be glad to have them back. He loosened his belt from under his cloak, and took from it the tooth-sheathed knives. Well, said Merry, I never expected to see those again. I marked a few orcs with mine, but Ugluk took them from us. How he glared! At first I thought he was going to stab me, but he threw the things away as if they burned him. Here also is your brooch, Pippin, said Aragorn. I have kept it safe, for it is a very precious thing. Oh, I know, said Pippin. It was a wrench to let it go, but what else could I do? Nothing else, said Aragorn. One who cannot cast away a treasure at need is in fetters. You did rightly. The cutting of the bands on your wrists, that was smart work, said Gimli. Luck served you there, but you seized your chance with both hands, one might say. And set us a pretty riddle, said Legolas. I wondered if you had grown wings. Well, unfortunately not, said Pippin. But you did not know about Grishnak. He shuddered and said no more, leaving Merry to tell of those last horrible moments, the pouring hands, the hot breath, and the dreadful strength of Grishnak's hairy arms. All this about the orcs of Barad-dûr, lugbirds as they call it, makes me uneasy, said Aragorn. The Dark Lord already knew too much, and his servants also, and Grishnak evidently sent some message across the river after the quarrel. The Red Eye will be looking towards Isengard, but Saruman at any rate is in a cleft stick of his own cutting. Yes, whichever side wins, this outlook is poor, said Merry. Things began to go all wrong for him from the moment his outlook looks poor. His outlook is... Yes, whichever side wins, his outlook is poor, said Merry. Things began to go all wrong for him from the moment his orc set foot in Rohan. We caught a glimpse of the old villain, or so Gandalf hints, said Gimli, on the edge of the forest. Oh, when was that? Asked Pippin. 5 nights ago, said Aragorn. Let me see, said Merry. 5 nights ago. Now, we come to a part of the story you know nothing about. We met Treebeard that morning after the battle, and that night we were at Wellinghall, one of his Ent houses. The next morning we went to Entmoot, a gathering of Ents, that is, and the queerest thing I have ever seen in my life. It lasted all that day and the next, and we spent the nights with an Ent called Quickbeam, and then late in the afternoon, in the 3rd day of their moot, the Ents suddenly blew up. It was amazing. The forest had felt as tense as if a thunderstorm was brewing inside it, then all at once it exploded. I wish you could have heard their song as they marched. If Saruman had heard it, he would be 100 miles away by now, even if he had to run on his own legs, said Pippin. And then they sing a song, and I'm afraid I did not learn it because I simply could not. In time or with my head. Honeybee says I like that Aragorn knows the Shire calendar off the top of his head. It is very sweet. It is very sweet. I can't believe Aragorn does actually have friends now. It's like he's really leaning into having friends at this moment, isn't he? It's very sweet. Then he says Boromir's last stand, we're passing quickly over it. Like just as they did. They passed very quickly over Boromir's. It's very... Actually, no, I have to stop. It's very sad that... it just breaks my heart that Boromir had to do, like, the bit of the journey that really had no comfort, no relief, and no moment of, like, there was no moment of victory in any of the time that Boromir spent with the company. It was just a consistent downhill, it just consistently went downhill from the very moment they left, and he just never, like, it was just like his lot. Like we can't get into this again. Yeah. So this is a bit of the Ent song, the Ent marching to war song, which goes through Isengard. Though Isengard be strong and hard as stone. As cold as stone and bare as bone, we go to war, to hew the stone and break the door. There was very much more. A great deal of the song had no words. Oh wait, sorry. Oh, there was very much more. A great deal of the song had no words, and was like a music of thorns and drums, and it was very exciting. But I thought it was only marching music and no more, just a song, until I got here. I know better now. We came down over the last ridge into Nan Curinir after night had fallen, continued Merry. It was then that I first had the feeling that the forest was moving behind us. I thought I was dreaming an Entish dream, but Pippin had noticed it too. We were both frightened, but we did not find out any more about it until later. It was the Huorns, or so the Ents call them in short language. Treebeard won't say much about them, but I think they are Ents that have become almost like trees, at least to look at. They stand here and there in the woods or under its eaves, silent, watching endlessly over the trees, but deep in the darkest dales there are hundreds and hundreds of them, I believe. There is a great power in them, and they seem able to wrap themselves in shadow. It is difficult to try to see them moving, but they do. They can move very quickly if they are angry. You stand still, looking at the weather maybe, or listening to the rustling of wind, and suddenly you find that you are in the middle of a wood with great groping trees all around you. They still have voices and can speak with the Ents. That is why they're called Huorns. Treebeard says, but they become queer and wild, dangerous. I should be terrified of meeting them if there were no true Ents about to look after them. Well, in the early night we crept down a long ravine into the upper end of the Wizard's Vale, the Ents with all their rustling Huorns behind. Okay, so wait. Does that mean Old Man Willow was an Ent? Or is an Ent? I had no idea about this. I totally forgot this piece of very important lore, and I feel like everybody's forgotten it too. So the Huorns are essentially just Ents that have gone tree-ish. But they're still kind of chill. Like, they're still doing some things. All the Huorns that are moving and all the trees that come down are all Huorns. And so they're all Ents. They're just tree-ish Ents. So that does definitely mean that Old Man Willow has to have been an Ent at one stage. Which is just wild that they don't connect that here. Merry and Pippin don't actually connect that, considering their long relationship with Old Man Willow. It seems wild. Like, yeah, like it must be, so there just must be a ton of Ents. They've all gone tree-ish, but there were a ton of Ents, and it makes total sense. Yeah, okay. That's cool, I like that. Poor Old Man Willow. No wonder he's angry. No wonder he's angry. Has to listen to Tom Bombadil all day. And people call him Old Man Willow. Yes, they do mention the Old Forest tree. Ragnar says that. But they don't. I feel like they don't mention it like it's not a proper mention. But anyway, well into the early night, we crept down a long ravine into the upper end of the Wizard's Vale. The Ent with all their bustling Huorns behind. We could not see them, of course, but the whole air was full of creaking. It was very dark, a cloudy night. They moved at great speed as soon as they had left the hills, and made a noise like a rushing wind. The moon did not appear through the clouds, and not long after midnight there was a tall wood all around the north side of Isengard. There were no signs of enemies, nor of any challenge. There was a light gleaming from a high window in the tower. That was all. Treebeard and a few more Ents crept on, right round to within sight of the great gates. Pippin and I were with him. We were sitting on Treebeard's shoulders, and I could feel the quivering tenseness in him. But even then, even when they're roused, Ents can be very cautious and patient. They stood still as carved stones, breathing and listening. Then, all at once, there was a tremendous stir. Trumpets blared, and the walls of Isengard echoed. We thought that we had been discovered, and that the battle was going to begin. But nothing of the sort. All Saruman's people were marching away. I don't know much about this war, or about the horsemen of Rohan, but Saruman seems to have meant to finish off the king and all his men with one final blow. He emptied Isengard. I saw the enemy go. Endless lines of marching orcs, and troops of them mounted on great wolves, and there were battalions of men too. Many of them carried torches, and in the flare I could see their faces. Most of them were ordinary men, rather tall and dark-haired and grim, but not particularly evil-looking. But there were some others that were horrible. Oh dear, oh god, hang on, oh. But there were some others that were horrible. Man-high, but with goblin faces. Sallow, leering, squint-eyed. Do you know, they reminded me at once of that southerner at Bree. Only he was not so obviously orc-like as these were. As most of these were. He really is just, he's just gotta hammer this point home, doesn't he? He just really has to consistently hammer this point home. He can't leave it alone. He can't leave it alone. Yeah. Oof. It is a description. It is certainly a description. And also, oh, I see. Wait, oh yes, they are obviously half-orcs, aren't they? You're right. I hadn't thought of that before. I thought he was just describing another lot of men, but you're right. Some of he's describing half-orcs. Raklos asks, are the half-orcs inherently evil? We don't know. We don't get much proper description of half-orcs. And I suppose with the fact that there are half-orcs, it does mean that it means that that the Uruk-hai are probably different from half-orcs. So yeah, it's pretty. It's. Peter says, "God, that's painful to hear." It's rough to read too. Rough to read. Oof. Yeah, so they're half orcs, is what Pippin is describing. But again, we have to keep going into this slant-eyed. Sallow, I always think to mean really pale, like you're sallow. But I don't think that's actually what Jurt is talking about here. I feel like there's another like meaning for sallow that is more correct here. Ragnar says they're half orcs but also half men. Yeah, this is the thing. I'm pretty like we don't get any actual nobody ever talks to a half orc. There's never a point where we're talking to half orcs, and in fact, I'm pretty sure the majority of them must have just kind of died in Helm's Deep. But because what they say is that all the orcs died, but the men. I do quite like here that Pippin, when describing the men, basically just said that they were basically just
they weren't particularly evil looking. They were just kind of normal people. And especially because because the Dunlandings, I think, are supposed to have dark skin, or some of them do. So we can use that. I can use it. Yeah, the Dessa comes in with the good. Yes, Dessa says that he means yellow. Yes, that seems like what it would be, isn't it? That does seem like what he means. Yeah. He means yellow. He's basically reading out of one of those anti-Mongol caricature comics from the 1940s, isn't he? Basically. He's just put it back down on paper. Raklos asks, what about their free will? Where do they go after they die? It's true. Like, I really, the half-orcs really are not explained properly. And I assume that the orcs also go to the same place men go. My assumption is that's what happens. Because they are, like, they definitely have a will. There's no such thing as like hell in Lord of the Rings. Like, there's no such thing as a place you go to. I mean, well, I guess there's the void. There is the void, which I suppose is the place where they send corrupted creatures, but I don't know. It's very, very badly described. I guess it just depends. Danny says, I always forget that half-orcs exist in Lord of the Rings. They get mentioned in Lord of the Rings Online, and I'm like, wait, what? Yeah, I know. Like, you meet them, you first properly meet them in the Lone Lands, and they like, you talk to some of them, because the thing is that in Lord of the Rings Online, they're actual characters. Yeah, so Ragnar says orcs could go to Mandos and stay there until the end like dwarves. Nobody goes into the void. Oh, okay. Yes, that's true, actually. They only throw people into the void. Like, the void is only for specifically being thrown into. People don't automatically go there. So, I guess it's just they just kind of are there. Orcs just arrive in Mandos and he has to deal with them, I guess. Just kind of have to deal with them. Just kind of have to put a I wonder what the orc place in Mandos is like. Like, he's trying to make it like it's just one enormous therapy session. It's just a huge long-running therapy session. How to deal with being a racist caricature, and the confirmation that God doesn't love you. Like, oh gosh, it's all rough. Let's keep going.
I thought of him too, said Aragorn. We had many of these, half-orcs to deal with at Helm's Deep. It seemed plain now that that southerner was a spy of Saruman's, but whether he was working with the Black Riders or for Saruman alone, I do not know. It is difficult with these evil folk to know when they are in league and when they are cheating one another.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So this actually gives me some relief, because it means that southerner just means as in Helm's Deep, or though it means like Orthanc, as that's if they came from the south, but not the south as we think of it. It's just they're just from the south, as in from the Fords of Isen, from the, like the Rohirrim are southerners, kind of, to Bree. That's actually more of a relief to me. As much as this whole bit is very racist, but it does mean that there is a relief to me that I don't have to add in Like, those were not... Anyway, okay. Danny says, we cannot get into Mandos-approved therapy discourse again. I don't remember when we went into it before. Raglos says, yeah, what does Mandos do? Does he heal them to make them into humans, elves? / elves? Raglos, if you're a half man, half orc, does he make you into a full man? That would be very strange. That would be very strange. But I don't think, I mean, the term half orc makes it sound like they are half orc. But the way, like, making him half orc makes orc a race, which it technically isn't. Because technically orcs are all just corrupted versions of corrupted in inverted commas, but they're still, I would say, technically men. So it's not that they're making them full man, it's that he would be curing, that's a terrible, oh god, this all is bad, this is all very bad, he would be, I don't want to talk about this is awful, this is all dreadful, we're gonna continue on, Well, all sorts together. Sorry. Well, of all sorts together, there must have been 10,000 at the very least, said Mary. They took an hour to pass out of the gates. Some went off down the highway to the fords, and some turned away and went eastward. A bridge had been built down there, about a mile away, where the river runs in a very deep channel. You could see it now if you stood up. They were all singing with harsh voices and laughing and making a hideous din. I thought things looked very black for Rohan, but Treebeard did not move. He said, my business is with Isengard tonight, with rock and stone. But though I could not see what was happening in the dark, I believe the Huans began to move south as soon as the gates were shut again. Their business was with the orcs, I think. They were far down the valley in the morning, or at any rate there was a shadow there that one couldn't see through. As soon as Saruman had sent off all his army, our turn came. Treebeard put us down and went up to the gates and began hammering on the doors and calling for Saruman. There was no answer except arrows and stones from the walls, but arrows are no use against Ents. Well, they hurt them, of course, and infuriate them, like stinging flies, but an Ent can be stuck as full of orc arrows as a pincushion, and take no serious harm. They cannot be poisoned, for one thing, and their skin seems to be very thick and tougher than bark. It makes a very heavy axe stroke to wound them very seriously. They don't like axes, but there would have to be a great many axemen to cut one Ent. A man that hacks once at an Ent never gets a chance of a second blow. A punch from an Ent fist crumples up iron like thin tin. I like the idea of Mary like watching, like he's thinking in his head of what happened when Treebeard punched somebody and going, oh god, oh dear. Then he says, how could you forget that discourse? That was like half a day talking about therapy in Valinor and what Mandos' healing entails. Well, that's the thing, you see, I don't... That sounds... I probably took one look at that and said, that all sounds like Silmarillion stuff to me, and then I pieced out and did something else. Almost certainly that is what occurred. No, I don't. Well, Raklos, Honeybee says, yeah, I started the therapy discourse before and it was a mistake. Raklos says, yeah, yes, I remember the discourse and I still don't like Namut. Well, I mean, I don't like any of the Valar, so... I just have no horse in that race, is the thing. When Treebeard had got a few arrows in him, he began to warm up, to get positively hasty, as he would say. He let out a great hoom, and a dozen more Ents came striding up. An angry Ent is terrifying. Their fingers and their toes just freeze onto rock, and they tear it up like bread crust. It was like watching the work of great tree roots in 100 years, all packed into a few moments. They pushed, pulled, tore, shook and hammered, and clang, bang, crash, crack. In 5 minutes they had had these huge gates just lying in ruin, and some were already beginning to eat into the walls like rabbits in a sandpit. I don't know what Saruman thought was happening, but anyway, he did not know how to deal with it. His wizardry may have been falling off lately, of course, but anyway, I think he has not much grit, not much playing courage alone in a tight place without a lot of slaves and machines and things, if you know what I mean. Very different from old Gandalf. I wonder if his fame was not all along mainly due to his cleverness in settling in Isengard.
No, said Aragorn. Once he was as great as his fame made him. His knowledge was deep, his thought was subtle, and his hands marvellously skilled. And he had a power over the minds of others. The wise he could persuade, and the smaller folk he would daunt. That power he certainly still keeps. There are not many in Middle-earth that I should say were safe, if they were left alone to talk with him, even now when he has suffered a defeat. Gandalf, Elrond, and Galadriel, perhaps, now that his wickedness has been laid bare, but very few others.
All the Ents are safe, said Pippin. He seems at one time to have got around them, but never again. And anyway, he did not understand them, and he made a great mistake of leaving them out of his calculations. He had no plan for them, and there was no time to make any. Once they had set to work, as soon as our attack began, the few remaining rats in Isengard started bolting through every hole that the Ents made. The Ents let the men go, after they had questioned them, 2 or 3 dozen only down at this end. I don't think many orc folk of any size escaped, not from the Huorns. There was a wood of them all around Isengard by that time, and as well as those that had gone down the valley. When the Ents had reduced a large part of the southern walls to rubbish, and what was left of his people had bolted and deserted him, Saruman fled in panic. He seemed to have been at the gates when we arrived. I expect he came to watch his splendid army march out. When the Ents broke their way in, he left in a hurry. They did not spot him at first, but the night had opened out, and there was a great light of stars, quick enough for Ents to see by. Quite enough for Ents to see by, and suddenly Quickbeam gave a cry. "The tree killer! The tree killer!" Quickbeam is a gentle creature, but he hates Saruman all the more fiercely for that. His people suffered cruelly from the orc axes. He leapt down the path from the gate, and he can move like a wind when he is roused. There was a pale figure hurrying away in and out of the shadows of the pillars, and it had nearly reached the stairs to the tower door. But it was a near thing. Quickbeam was so hot after him that he was within a step or two of being caught, and strangled when he slipped in through the door. When Saruman was safe back in Orthanc, it was not long before he set some of his precious machinery to work. By that time there were many Ents inside Isengard. Some had followed Quickbeam, and others had burst in from the north and from the east. They were roaming about and doing a great deal of damage, and suddenly up fires and foul fumes and vents and shafts all over the plain began to spout and belch. Several of the Ents got scorched and blistered. One of them, Beachbone I think it was called, a very tall handsome Ent, got caught in a spray of some liquid fire and burned like a torch. It was a horrible sight. That sent them mad. I thought that they had been really roused before, but I was wrong. I saw what it was like at last. It was staggering. They roared and boomed and trumpeted until stones began to crack and fall at the mere noise of them. Mary and I lay on the ground and stuffed our cloaks into our ears. Round and round the rock of Orthanc the Ents went striding and storming like a howling gale, breaking pillars, hurling avalanches of boulders down the shafts, tossing up huge slabs of stone into the air like leaves. The tower was in the middle of the spinning whirlwind. I saw iron posts and blocks of masonry go rocketing up hundreds of feet and smash against the windows of Orthanc. But Treebeard kept his head. He had not had any burns, luckily. He did not want his folk to hurt themselves in their fury, and he did not want Saruman to escape out of some hole in the confusion. Many of the Ents were hurling themselves against the Orthanc rock, but that defeated them. It was very smooth and hard. Some wizardry is in it, perhaps, older and stronger than Saruman's. Anyway, they could not get a grip on it, or make a crack in it, and they were bruising and wounding themselves against it. Yes, we do have to pause and just think about quite how funny it is imagining Saruman just scampering his little wizard butt back his little wizard bottom scampering away in panic as this giant Ent fucking pelts after him like this huge ass huge ass troll height Ent just fucking belting after him, and Saruman just like we don't get that image enough, and it's a very important image to me suddenly. It has become very important in a very short amount of time, and I do desperately need to see some manner of artwork of like Saruman just with just like, and like you can see his little socks and ankles because his robes are billowing up as he sprints his, like little way, and then finally gets to the door and just manages to like launch himself through the door in Orthanc and then shut the door behind him, and then he's like laid out in the parlor panting. Socks? Yes, of course Saruman has to have socks. Of course he does. He can't just wear, like, but nothing else. Unless he has tights. Daddy says his Hello Kitty slippers. Also possible. Hello, Prince of Caledor. Hello, Jamie. Welcome in. You also need to be... you've come at a good time. Do you... What kind of underwear do you think Saruman wears? And would it... And how funny... And please make sure that you make it as funny as possible after... In terms of seeing it after his cloak billows up, because he's having to run away from a really, really big Ent who's just right on his tail, like right about to get him. Like he's just so close to getting him. And Saruman, who's this old man with his beard billowing in the, like getting in his face, like it's getting in his face. He can't really help that because it's a long ass beard, and he's just like, he can't. It's really all he can do. He's just doing. Oh, Prince of Caledor says budgie smugglers with an embroidered golden S on them. Now, admittedly, I was not thinking that that his cloak would billow up quite that high, but I appreciate the image very much. I remember. I did say underwear, but I was thinking more of like stockings and tights. I couldn't think of the word for like tights and stockings and socks and stuff. But I don't want you to think that I am unhappy with this gift that you've given me. This answer I will accept. As long as he can have stockings with garters as well. Like he's just oh, it's just very good. I just have a really good image. He has exactly, he's very classy. Like he would be, it would be something along those lines. It would be very high quality. He's a very funny character. So Rakla says Saruman is such a funny guy. He's very funny. He's very funny. Anyway, we're very glad to have you in, Cal. And we'll continue on. Oh. Where did we even get to? There we go. Okay. So Treebeard went out into the ring and shouted. His enormous voice rose above all the din. There was a dead silence suddenly. In it we heard a shrill laugh from the high window in the tower. That had a queer effect on the Ents. They had been boiling over. Now they became cold and grim as ice and quiet, and they left the plain and gathered round Treebeard, standing quite still. He spoke to them for a little in their own language. I think he was telling them of a plan he had made in his old head long before. Then they just faded silently away in the grey light. Day was dawning by that time. They set a watch on the tower, I believe, but the watchers were so well hidden in shadows and kept so still that I could not see them. The others went away north. All that day they were busy, out of sight. Most of the time we were left alone. It was a dreary day, and we wandered about a bit, although we kept out of view of the windows of Orthanc as much as we could. They stared at us so threateningly. A good deal of the time we spent looking for something to eat, and also we sat and talked, wondering what was happening away south in Rohan and what had become of all of the rest of our company. Every now and then we could hear in the distance the rattle and fall of stone and thudding noises echoing in the hills. In the afternoon we walked round the circle and went to have a look at what was going on. There was a great shadowy wood of horns at the head of the valley, and another around the northern wall, and we dared not go in there. But there was a rending, tearing noise of work going on inside. Ents and Huorns were digging great pits and trenches, and making great pools and dams, and gathering all the waters of the Eisen, and every other spring and stream that they could find. We left them to it. At dusk, Treebeard came back to the gate, and was humming and booming to himself, and seemed pleased. He stood and stretched in his great arms and legs, and breathed deep. I asked him if he was tired. Tired, he said. Tired? Well, no, not tired, but stiff. I need a good draught of Entwash. We have worked hard. We have done more stone cracking and earth gnawing today than we have done in many a long year before. But it is nearly finished. That night falls. When night falls, do not linger near this gate or in the old tunnel. Water may come through, and it will be foul water for a while, until all the filth of Saruman is washed away. Then Eisen can run clean again. He began to pull down a bit more of the walls in a leisurely sort of way, just to amuse himself. We were just wondering where it would be safe to lie and get some sleep, when the most amazing thing of all happened. There was the sound of a rider coming swiftly up the road. Mary and I lay quiet, and Treebeard hid himself in the shadows under the arch. Suddenly, a great horse came striding up, like a flash of silver. It was already dark, but I could see the rider's face clearly. It seemed to shine, and all his clothes were white. I sat up, staring with my mouth open, tried to call out, and couldn't. There was no need. He halted just by us and looked down at us. "Gandalf," I said, but my voice was only a whisper. Did he say, "Hello, Pippin, this is a pleasant surprise"? "No, indeed," he said. "Get up, you tomfool of a took. Where in the name of wonder in all this ruin is Treebeard? I want him, quick." Treebeard heard his voice, and came out of the shadows at once. And there was a strange meeting. I was surprised, because neither of them seemed surprised at all. Gandalf obviously expected to find Treebeard here, and Treebeard might almost have been loitering about near the gates on purpose to meet him. When we had told the old Ent all about Moria, we had told the old Ent all about Moria. But then I remembered a queer look he gave us at the time. I could only suppose that he had seen Gandalf, or had some news of him, but would not say anything in a hurry. "Don't be hasty" is his motto, but nobody, not even the elves, will say much about Gandalf's movements when he's not there. "Whom Gandalf?" said Treebeard. I am glad you have come. Wood and water, stock and stone, I can master, but there is a wizard to manage here." "Treebeard," said Gandalf, "I need your help. You have done much, but I need more. I have about 10,000 orcs to manage." Damn it, that's very funny. Damn it, Gandalf, that's very funny, and I'm mad that that's so funny. Treebeard, listen, I need you to help. There's a wizard. I don't know how to manage wizards. And Gandalf's like, "Well, I have to manage 10,000 orcs, so you're gonna have to deal with it for a bit. Treebeard, you're gonna have to deal with it for a sec. Just a moment, alright? I've got stuff to do." Then those two went off and had a council together in some corner. It must have seemed very hasty to Treebeard, for Gandalf was in a tremendous hurry, and was already talking in a great pace before they passed out of hearing. They were only a matter of minutes, perhaps a quarter of an hour. Then Gandalf came back to us, and he seemed relieved, almost merry. He did say he was glad to see us then. "But Gandalf," I cried, "where have you been? And have you seen the others?" "Wherever I have been, I am back," he answered, in the genuine Gandalf manner. "Yes, I have seen some of the others, but news must wait. This is a perilous night, and I must ride fast. But the dawn may be brighter, and if so, we shall meet again. Take care of yourselves, and keep away from Orthanc. Goodbye." Treebeard was very thoughtful after Gandalf had gone. He had evidently learnt a lot in a short time, and was digesting it. He looked at us and said, "Well, I find you are not such hasty folk as I thought." "You said much less than you might, and no more than you should. This is a bundle of news, and no mistake. Well, now Treebeard must get busy." Before he went, we got a little news out of him, and it did not cheer us up at all, for at the moment we thought more about you three than about Frodo and Sam, or about poor Boromir. For we gathered that there was a great battle going on, or soon would be, and that you were in it, and might never come out of it. "Huorns will help," said Treebeard. Then he went away, and we did not see him again until this morning. It was deep night. We lay on top of a pile of stone, and could see nothing beyond it. Mists or shadows blotted out everything like a great blanket all around us. The air seemed hot and heavy, and it was full of rustlings and creakings and a murmur like voices passing. I think that hundreds more of those Huorns must have been passing by to help in the battle. Later there was a great rumble of thunder away south, and flashes of lightning far away across Rohan. Every now and then we could see mountain peaks, miles and miles away, stab out suddenly black and white and then vanish, and behind us there were noises like thunder in hills, but different. At times the whole valley echoed. It must have been about midnight when the Ents broke the dams, and poured all the gathered waters through a gap in the northern wall down into Isengard. The Huorn dark had passed, and the thunder had rolled away. The moon was sinking behind the western mountains. Isengard began to fill up with black, creeping streams and pools, and they glittered in the last light of the moon as they spread over the plain, every now and then when the waters found their way down into some shaft or spout hole. Great white steams hissed up. Smoke rose in billows. There were explosions and gusts of fire. One great coil of vapour went hurling up, twisting round and round Orthanc, until it looked like a tall peak of cloud, fiery underneath and moonlit above. And still more water poured in, until at last Isengard looked like a huge flat saucepan, all steaming and bubbling. We saw a cloud of smoke and steam from the south last night, when we came to the mouth of Nan Curinir, said Aragorn. We feared that Saruman was brewing some new devilry for us. Well, not he, said Pippin. He was probably choking and not laughing any more. Yesterday morning, the water had sunk down into all the holes, and there was a dense fog. We took refuge in that guard room over there, and we had rather a fright. The lake began to overflow, and pour out through the old tunnel, and the water was rapidly rising up the steps. We thought we were going to get caught like orcs in a hole, but we found a winding stair at the back of the storeroom that brought us out on top of the arch. It was a squeeze to get out, as the passages had been cracked and half blocked with fallen stone near the top. Then we sat up above the floods and watched the drowning of Isengard. The Ents kept on pouring in more water till all the fires were quenched and every cave filled. The fog slowly gathered together and steamed up into a huge umbrella of cloud. It must have been a mile high. In the evening there was a great rainbow over the eastern hills, and then the sunset was blotted out by a thick drizzle on the mountain sides. It all went very quiet. A few wolves howled mournfully far away. The Ents stopped the inflow in the night and sent the Isen back into its old course, and that was the end of it all. Since then the water has been sinking again. There must be outlets somewhere from the caves beneath, I think. If Saruman peeps out of any of his windows, it must look like an untidy, dreary mess. We felt very lonely. Not even a visible Ent to talk to in all the ruin, and no news. We spent the night up on top there, above the arch, and it was cold and damp, and we did not sleep. We had a feeling that anything might happen at any minute. Saruman was still in his tower, and there was a noise in the night like a wind coming up the valley. I think the Ents and Huons that had been away came back then, but where they have gone now to, I don't know. It was a misty, moisty morning when we climbed down and looked round again, and nobody was about, and that was all there is to tell. It seems almost peaceful now after all the turmoil, and safer too somehow since Gandalf came back. I could sleep. They all fell silent for a while. Gimli refilled his pipe.
There is one thing I wonder about, he said as he lit it with his flint and tinder. Wormtongue, you told Theoden he was with Saruman. How did he get here?
Oh, yes, I forgot about him, said Pippin. He did not get here till this morning. We had just lit the fire and had some breakfast when Treebeard appeared again. We heard him booming and calling our names outside. I have just come round to see how you are faring, my lads, he said, and to give you some news. Huons have come back. All well? Aye, very well indeed. He laughed and slapped his thighs. No more orcs in Isengard, no more axes, and there will be folk coming up from the south before the day is old, some that you may be glad to see. He had hardly said that when we heard the sound of hoofs on the road. We rushed out before the gates, and I stood and stared, half expecting to see Strider and Gandalf come riding up at the head of an army. But out of the mist there rode a man on a tired old horse, and he looked a queer, twisted sort of creature himself. There was no one else. When he came out of the mists and suddenly saw all the ruin and wreckage in front of him, he sat and gaped, and his face went almost green. He was so bewildered that he did not seem to notice us at first. When he did, he gave a cry and tried to turn his horse round and ride off, but Treebeard took 3 strides, put out a long arm and lifted him out of the saddle. His horse bolted in terror, and he grovelled on the ground. He said he was a Grima, friend and counsellor of the king, and had been sent with important messages from Theoden to Saruman. No one else would dare to ride through the open land so full of foul orcs, he said, so I was sent, and I have had a perilous journey, and I am hungry and weary. I fled far north out of my way, pursued by wolves. I caught the sidelong looks he gave to Treebeard, and I said to myself, liar. Treebeard looked at him in his long, slow way for several minutes, till the wretched man was squirming on the floor. Then at last he said, I was expecting you, Master Wormtongue. The man started at his name. Gandalf got here first, so I know as much about you as I need, and I know what to do with you. Put all the rats in one trap, said Gandalf, and I will. I am the master of Isengard now, but Saruman is locked in his tower, and you can go there and give him all the messages that you can think of. Let me go, said Wormtongue. I know the way. You knew the way, I don't doubt, said Treebeard, but things have changed here a little. Go and see. He let Wormtongue go, and he limped off through the arch, with us close behind, until he came inside the ring and could see all the floods that lay between him and Orthanc. Then he turned to us. Let me go away, he whined. Let me go away. My messages are useless now. They are indeed, said Treebeard, but you have only 2 choices, to stay with me until Gandalf and your master arrive, or to cross the river. Which will you have? The man shivered at the mention of his master, and put a foot into the water, but he drew back. I cannot swim, he said. The water is not that deep, said Treebeard. It is dirty, but that will not harm you, Master Wormtongue. In you go now. With that, the wretch floundered off into the flood. It rose up nearly to his neck before he got too far away for me to see him. The last I saw of him was clinging to some old barrel or piece of wood, but Treebeard waded after him and watched his progress. Well, he has gone in, he said when he returned. I saw him crawling up the steps like a draggled rat. There is someone in there, in the tower still. A hand came out and pulled him in. Oh, God! It's such slapstick! Why is Saruman such slapstick? It's so funny! Why is Saruman and Grima such slapstick? Just like the idea of like Grima like crawling like this is perfect for like cartoon. Like Grima just like crawls his way like a little wet rat up to the edge of Orthanc, and then just about gets up to like reach for the door handle when the door opens, and then Saruman's hand comes out, grabs him by the scruff and yanks him in. It's so funny. That is so funny. Why is this is so? This is such a funny bit. Fuck. This would be hard. I can see why this would be hard for a film. This would be hard for a film because films are so short. So you generally need to kind of have a nice gradual change in tone to like not make it really jarring. But it would have been really hard to go from the horrors of Helm's Deep and people dying and like the death toll being absolutely catastrophic, and then immediately jump to Saruman Saruman pelting his way across. Like that would have been hard, especially considering that they did it the way they did it was like interspersing the two. Like, can you imagine if we'd gone from like from Harmer's valiant death at the gates of Helm's Deep to Quickbeam leaping from the wall and like scampering after a complete speeding away Saruman. That would be a hard sell. I can see why the change was necessary. That's all right. I can see why that change is necessary. Because you can make Saruman and that battle serious, but you can't make Helm's Deep slapstick. So I can see the point. It's a shame, but I can see it. Reckless says, imagine Christopher Lee in that scene. I am, and it's glorious, and I think he would have wanted it that way. I'm sad Christopher Lee didn't get to do that. Ugh. So there he is, and I hope the welcome is to his liking. Now I must go and wash myself clean of the slime. What do you mean cream of slime? Oh my god. I'll be away up on the north side if anyone wants to see me. There's no clean water left here fit for an ent to drink or to bathe in, so I will ask you two lads to keep a watch at the gate for the folk that are coming. There'll be the Lord of the Fields of Rohan, mark you. You must welcome him as well as you know how. His men have fought a great fight with the orcs. Maybe you know the right fashion of men's words for such a lord, better than Ents. There have been many lords in the green fields in my time, and I have never learned their speech or their names. They will be wanting man food, and you know all about that, I guess. So find what you think is fit for a king to eat if you can. And that is the end of the story. Though I should like to know who this Wormtongue is. Was he really the king's counsellor?
He was, said Aragorn, and so also Saruman's spy and servant in Rohan. Fate has not been kinder to him than he deserves. The sight of the ruin of all that he thought was strong and magnificent must have been almost punishment enough, but I fear that worse awaits him.
Yes, I don't suppose Treebeard sent him to Orthanc out of kindness, said Merry. He seemed rather grimly delighted with the business, and was laughing to himself when he went to get his bathe and drink. We spent a busy time after that, searching the flotsam and rummaging about. We found 2 or 3 storerooms in different places nearby, above the flood level, but Treebeard sent some Ents down, and they carried off a great deal of the stuff. We want man food for 25, the Ents said, so you can see that somebody had counted your company carefully before you arrived. You 3 were evidently meant to go with the great people, but you would not have fared any better. We kept as good as we sent, I promise you, because we sent no drink. What about drink? I said to the Ents. There is water of the Eisen, they said, and that is good enough for Ents and men. But I hope that the Ents may have found time to brew some of their draughts for the mountain springs, and we shall see Gandalf's beard curling when he returns. After the Ents had gone, we felt tired and hungry. But we did not grumble. Our labours had been well rewarded. It was through our search for man food that Pippin discovered the prize of all the flotsam for Hornblower's barrels. Pipeweed is better than food, said Pippin, and that's how the situation arose.
We understand it all now perfectly, said Gimli. All except one thing, said Aragorn. Leaf from the South Farthing in Isengard. The more I consider it, the more curious I find it. I have never been in Isengard, but I have journeyed in this land, and I know well the empty countries that lie between Rohan and the Shire. Neither goods nor folk have passed that way for many a long year, not openly. Saruman had dealings with someone in the Shire, I guess. Wormtongue. Wormtongues may be found in other houses than King Theoden's. Was there a date on the barrels?
Yes, said Pippin. It was the 1417 crop.
That is last year's.
No, the year before, of course. Now, a good year.
Ah, well, whatever evil was afoot is over now, I hope, or else it is beyond our reach at present, said Aragorn. Yet I think I shall mention it to Gandalf, small matter though it may seem among his great affairs. I wonder what he is doing, said Merry. The afternoon is getting on. Let's go and look around. You can enter Isengard now, at any rate, Strider, if you want to, but it is not a very cheerful sight. Ragnar says being locked in Orthanc with Saruman is awful.
This is such a nice bit. This is such a nice bit. I'm very soft about this bit. I would be softer if Boromir was here, but it's a very soft bit for them all to be sitting down after everything that had happened and they're just talking and chatting because, like, they're friends. And it makes me sad to think about, but also very, very soft. They're all good friends. They're all good friends. Oh, they are. They're friends. Well, I guess they're not, like, they are friends, I guess, but it's more about the fact that they were just searching for them for so long. And now they found them, and they really thought they weren't going to, and now they're just happy to see them, and they're getting to just sit down without thinking of anything too dreadful and talk about stuff. And have and of course the hobbits are happy because they get to feed themselves and other people, so they're obviously delighted. And Gimli's happy because he's got it's all so sweet and lovely. And this is just the loveliest. Like, it's like nothing in the plot is not being furthered by this scene at all. This is an entire chapter. This is an entire chapter. It goes on for it goes on for 15 pages. This is 15 pages of nothing happening in the plot except for them all sitting down and curling up in their cloaks and being happy. It's so soft. And I want more books to do it so badly. I love it so much. I love just moments where characters sit down with each other and it's just so solidifying of bonds and stuff. And like this is the like we needed more of this in the we needed more of this in the Fellowship, but I guess that's the point. They didn't have this in the Fellowship, so they weren't all... Anyway. Ragnar says, the question of pipeweed is such a small thing, you don't think much about it, and then you read the scouring and go, oh no, I know. It's true, I hadn't realised until now, but, like, Lotho Baggins must have been in cahoots with... Like, he must have been in cahoots with Saruman this whole time. It's very good foreboding. It's very good foreshadowing. Especially because it's not like an offhand remark. You do get this moment. It's very well done because you get this moment of time where Aragorn says, that is odd. And so you get it in your head. You're like, oh, that is odd. You're right. But then because so much happened afterwards, you forget it. But it doesn't mean that the end bit, when you get to the Scouring of the Shire, you don't forget that this happened. You're just like, oh, right. Oh, of course. Oh, no. It's very good. Very good. My head is nice and clear now, which is odd. I came into this with a literal headache. So I'm very clear. I feel like I should stop now. I feel I should stop while I'm ahead because this is the end of the chapter, and next we're going on to Saruman, and of course we don't want to miss out on the good memes. Yeah, because it starts it really just jumps into it. I think we're going to have to stop there and hope that my head continues with its good, with this good feeling. But God, I just love these fellows. And I'm finding it very difficult because I am sitting here thinking of Aragorn, like of just big long, daddy long legs Aragorn, wrapping himself up in his cloak, like a little like right around. Because you can't see his mail, so he wraps it right around himself and tucks it under his chin, and then lies back against a rock and then just blows some smoke. He's tucking it right round, and then like using his fingers through his cloak, he's got his pipe in his hand, and then blows some smoke out of it. Like, that's an adorable, objectively an adorable image that I might have to draw, and it's very difficult because I'm having a lot, like I don't want to feel things about Aragorn ever, but I am feeling a lot of things that are not, a lot of positive things about Aragorn at this moment, which I'm just gonna have to deal with, I suppose. But that's just, it's just very soft. It's a soft moment. Oh dear. He's just a very sleepy boy. He's a sleepy boy. He's done a lot of shit has happened. He's just been, like, it's just soft and, ugh. Bragwell says, you can feel a thing about Aragorn once. But this is the other thing. I have definitely feel things about Aragorn before. This is the issue. This is the problem with the fact that Tolkien does a good narrative, a good like base narrative, like the general, but then actions don't align. It's okay. He can be a stuck-up, self-aggrandizing bastard and a little dirty burrito man at the same time. It's fine. It's fine. I can think affectionately about Strider, maybe. Potentially. Sometimes. Just this once. It helps that the hobbits are here. It helps that he's kind of taking advantage of hobbit hospitality, essentially, is what he's doing. I mean, basically what is happening is they've all been to war, and now they're being welcomed by their friends into just like it's not even like a feast. They're like, come and sit down and listen to a story and blow some pipeweed with us, which is, I think, definitely the exact thing that you want to do after you've been in a horrific battle where you just kind of want to sit down quietly with some friends and listen to something and not have to deal with anything and wrap yourself up in your cloak. It's very sweet. Terrible. But yes, I think we're going to be stopping there, I think. I mean, we're right, we got right on time. We got there. Yeah. I hope everyone enjoyed that bit as much as I did. I really did enjoy it. I really did enjoy it. Kaz is... Oh god, you're right. Fuck. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, I won't hear the end of it. Oh dear. Kaz is going to love it. What a shame he did not manage to come and mock me in media res. I'm sure he will get to it eventually. I'm sure one of you will rat me out. I'm sure one of you will rat me out. Alright then. Okie dokie. Thank you everyone very much for coming. Save this, type this when you hear me to get here. See how, because I don't think we've, yeah, because it's gone down now. Drop frames are now 53.8%, so we shouldn't have a too long a delay. But yeah, thank you very much for coming. Thank you again, Ragloss, for showing me, for telling me when to stop. And I'll see you all at the next stream, where we will get to a real funny boy.